This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast and community for creative people who value and enjoy working alone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Own Best Company. My name is Franklin Taggart, and this podcast was my idea. I am a person who loves working alone, and I wanted to create a podcast and a community for people who love the same. My guest today is someone I met a few months ago at an online networking mixer, and we had a great conversation in that mixer, and I thought, wow, this guy's got something that I would love to bring to my audience. This is Jason Van Orden, everyone, and Jason is a jack of many trades, including one of my favorites, music. But we'll get a little bit more into his expertise here in just a second. But first, I just want to welcome you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Franklin. It's great to be here.
Jason helps authors, academics, and speakers turn their expertise into new streams of scalable income, such as online courses. He draws from more than 17 years of experience, including creating multiple successful brands, launching over 60 online courses, teaching more than 10,000 entrepreneurs, earning 7 figures in online course sales, and generating 8 million downloads of his podcast. His mission is to help visionaries with impactful ideas to connect with the people that they serve best and the problems that they can most uniquely solve. Jason lives in Brooklyn, New York, and is father to a 9-year-old daughter. He's played in 4 bands and recorded 5 albums, ranging in style from folk to jazz to alternative rock. We're in a brotherhood there.
Nice.
So, Jason, the reason that I had asked you to come on to the show is I was really interested to hear your take on what's the best way to get started in online courses. There are so many options these days. There are so many different ways that you can package and market a course. And for people who are just getting started, you may find yourself overwhelmed with just all of the different decisions that have to be made. So the question that we started with was, how can someone be prepared to do their first online course in this marketplace? So that was kind of where we were going, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience with online courses before we go too far. How long have you been doing them? It's, to have 60 online courses, you've got some time under your belt.
Right. Well, yeah, my first course, which was actually an offline course first, it was a seminar that I launched back in 2004. And I was in real estate investing at the time, so I knew a lot of real estate investors, and they were always asking me marketing questions because they figured out I knew something about marketing, which I learned from being in bands, how to market. And so I finally put together a seminar that was a 1-day seminar that people could attend. And I basically just gave this, crash course in direct marketing and how to find buyers and sellers for the deals that these investors would put together. But as soon as I knew enough to record that. So then I had the audio, and as a musician, I had all the gear to do that. And I had my slides that I turned into a 3-ring binder. And I was actually burning these CDs with my computer, printing these out and selling to people locally where I lived. And then I needed to expand beyond that. And that's when I went to the internet looking for ways to sell this through the internet. And of course, at the time, online courses weren't really much of a thing at all. There just weren't any tools for that. So that was the first time I took a course and started selling it online. But then soon after that, started a podcast that took off and got popular. It was a business podcast, and we had people start asking for coaching groups and courses and things like that. So at the time, we just would throw together web pages in whatever way we could to host stuff online. And ever since, I've launched a bunch of different programs and courses myself over the years. I mean, I launch a few a year, and am always refining and adding and testing new stuff with my clients as well. So that's where all that experience comes from.
That's amazing. So your first course was old school, man.
It was old school. Absolutely. I even launched it old school. I had a mailing list of like 80 people, and I sent a sequence of 3 physical mail promotional materials, right? Like a postcard and like a sales letter printed out, and it worked because I sold the thing out, and so I even marketed it old school as well.
That's awesome. Sometimes I miss the good old days.
Yeah.
Where there was actually a physical product.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about, like, for a person who is new to the online course realm, I'm interested to hear your perspective on the market today. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who are going around saying that it's saturated, and there's no real benefit to getting into it now. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so it's a growing industry and it continues to grow, and we continue to have more people now who see online education as a feasible option. And we also see them getting more and more disenchanted with some of the traditional institutions that have been, offering education to date, right? And so, well, and then with pandemic and COVID, that drove even more people to remote learning or getting familiar with remote learning. Now, obviously, kids eventually come back to school, but we've still got all of these adults that were taking seminars and courses and classes and things through the internet. So that's also driven things forward as well. So that's the first thing I would say, is it's a growing market. And the second thing that I would say is, here, just to continue with our music theme, I use Spotify as an example. And so Spotify now allows us to find any kind of music we want to listen to, genre or playlist or whatever. People have made playlists for all kinds of things, and I'm surprised sometimes what I can find. So if you want to listen to klezmer jazz, you're going to find that in Spotify, right? This highly niche thing. And that's what the internet has provided, is like this infinite choice, this infinite shelf space that can carry all of these different options. Yeah. Well, when you come into the educational field, or even just anybody who's going online looking for guidance, education, support, belonging, community, there are a lot of different options now because the internet's been around for a good couple of decades or so. And so now there's an opportunity for anybody out there in the world to be that one specific artist or channel or playlist on the Spotify of options on the internet. There are 8 billion people in this world, and all you need is a little portion of those people who resonate specifically with you, right? So yeah, there might be a lot of other people who teach the same kind of relevant material, but you teach it in a way that's going to be resonant with very specific people out there, whether because you've gauged to a very specific population, or there's just an approach or your perspective, your experiences, your stories that you're bringing to bear to the course. There are going to be people who want to take that course from you as opposed to somebody else, even if you're both promising similar outcomes.
Mm-hmm. So finding some areas where you can, really highlight your specialties might be a way of navigating that.
Yeah, really leaning into your own strengths, really exploring like what is unique about your perspective and message on a thing. And people, they want to do business with someone else that they vibe with, for lack of a better word. I love this word resonance that I use a lot, but it's you have certain values that connect with theirs, or maybe your a past experience. For instance, there's a friend of mine who does really well with his courses because a lot of children of immigrants are drawn to his brand because he is a child of immigrants, and he's always telling stories about his immigrant parents and how and what life has been like with that, right? And so he attracts that crowd, and they choose to take his course as opposed to other business courses that are out there.
That's very cool. Well, I asked if you wouldn't mind putting together something of a presentation for us today.
Yeah.
And this is for people who are getting ready to do their first course. And tell us a little bit about what we can expect here in the next little while.
Yeah, so like you said, it can be very daunting when you're thinking about launching an online course. And so what I've done is with all this experience, I've broken it down into 4 pieces, 4 steps, 4 things that you need to think through in order to ensure that you're going to create a course that is in demand, that makes the impact that you want it to, gets the results, that the audience that you're trying to reach is going to catch their attention and get them to invest their time, their money, and energy into that course. So I put together a slide deck that are going to walk us through these 4 different aspects of an online course. I think anybody who's either considering it or even possibly tried it or is in the middle of it will find some clarity with this. It's a framework. I'm a big fan of using frameworks because all of the fundamental principles are there, but then it also allows you to kind of layer on top of that who you are and your mission, your values, your goals, your strengths, and things like that. So that's what I put together today, is to walk us through that framework and bring some, bring some simplicity and clarity on this topic for anybody who's interested.
Well, that's perfect. Let's get started.
So, like I said, it's about how to create your first online course. And this is the diagram that sums up what we're going to be talking about here. These are the 4 parts of a profitable and impactful online course. So you see the first one here is the customer. And this is really, really important. Often people will, they'll because they know I'm an online course consultant, they'll ask me things like, hey, Jason, I'm thinking about doing this, yoga, something or other course. What do you think? Is that a good idea? Will that sell well? And I immediately back them up and I say, well, who is it for? Right? Because there are a lot of different audiences you could teach yoga to, and a lot of different reasons why those people might want to learn yoga. You can have people who use it for mindfulness. You can have people who use it for flexibility. You can have people who use it for healing from trauma. There are a lot of different ways to apply yoga. So you need to be very clear first on who that audience is that your course is going to help. Then the second thing is you need to know, well, what are the outcomes that they are looking for? So what are the pains and problems they want to get away from, the goals and unfulfilled needs that they want help with? And those are the outcomes that your course is going to deliver. And if you have a very specific audience in mind, one that you understand and have really taken time to empathize with what their experience is, what their needs are, and you find out what their most desired outcomes and results are, right there, those 2 pieces give you a profitable course idea. And then it's the 2 pieces in the middle that make up the actual course itself. It's a combination of your signature process and then wrapping it in the experience. And the reason why I delineate between these 2 here is that if you get, a lot of times people say, hey, a digital course, online course is this asset that I can make it once and it continues to make money for me. And that's true. But what the asset really is a process that you have created for helping this intended customer to reach that desired outcome, to bridge the gap that is between where they're at now and where they want to be. And when you get that process, and this kind of comes into your specific take, your Spotify genre, your channel of music that you offer, so to speak, to use that metaphor again, your signature process is, what are the combination of steps that you would take somebody through? What are the things you would teach them? What are the examples you would use? What are the ways you would present different options to them and so forth, right? And if you have that solidified, then what that does is that allows you to have different types of offers at different price points in your business. So you could wrap that signature process as a just purely digital course that somebody buys and goes through themselves, or you can wrap it in a coaching experience where somebody's paying a much higher fee for you to guide them through it one-on-one. And then there's a myriad of options in between those 2. And we'll talk a little bit about that more later. So and we're going to go into more depth on each of these, but I want people to think about that, that idea of signature process. When you have that, you can kind of slice and dice it or repackage it in different ways. You can turn it into an overview to write a book. You can take a piece of it that becomes a keynote. You can break one module out and sell it as a lower priced course. So the signature process is what the real asset is and why it's so important. And I always work with my clients to define what their signature process is before we really start talking about the overall course itself. So let's talk about this defining your intended customer. This obviously, there are several different criteria that you want to have delineated. You might not use all of these criteria, but these are the types of criteria that you might use. Demographics. You've got what is their profession? Is there certain work that they do? Do you work with managers only, or do you work with people who've just started their first like an entry-level job? So you work with lawyers. Do you work with real estate investors, like my first course? What is their level of experience? Do you want them to have 10 years behind them of experience already, so they're more mature in their career? Or are you trying to help people who are more early in their career, for instance? Then you also want to be thinking about, well, what types of life experiences have they been through that would prepare them to be ready for or to want or benefit from the process that you're going to take them through? Then also you might think about, well, what point in the journey might they be on? So this is like, what maybe have they already done? What do they need to have already done to work with you, right? So for instance, I have one of my group coaching programs where I want people to have already done some coaching and consulting, or already have worked with clients as an expert of some sort for 2 or 3 years before they come and be a part of that program. So I'm very specific about it. Authors and coaches and consultants is who I'm going for, and I want them to have the experience of already have delivered their services to clients in a specific way and made money with that. So these are, and then the final one is, what resources might they have? Do they have, do they need a certain amount of money that they're going to have to be able to spend on tools and different things that you're going to ask them to get? Do they need to have a certain amount of time? Do they need to have connections in their network that they can leverage and turn to? Do they need to have a team that works with them? Do they need to have certain supplies or certain equipment already in place before they can go through the course? So these 6 criteria right here allow you to get very specific about who that person is and who the course is meant for. That brings us now to the second piece, which is outcomes. So we can identify the outcomes by breaking this down. And I find that there are 5 different types of outcomes that are valuable, that people will invest their time, money, and energy into. The first one is just results, measurable results that they will achieve. These tend to be metrics, numbers, things that they can look at and measure. It improved in this way. It changed in that way. There's some kind of measurable thing that allows them to demonstrate that. The second one is some kind of transformation. This is a change in how they feel or think, or how they do things in the world, how they operate. Are they going to go through a transformation of their beliefs about themselves, about their relationships, about their life, about their job? How is their life going to be different on all these different levels once they go through your process? They also pay for relief. They want to leave behind them pains. It might be mental or emotional or physical symptoms that they want removed from their life. So for instance, this could be, hey, I have been dealing with this autoimmune disease, and it causes all these inconvenient things, and I'm worried about the implications it has for my health. It could be, you help people with overcoming their anxiety, for instance, right? And that's something that they're looking for some relief from, is that daily worry and rumination. So what is it you're going to relieve them of by taking them through that process? And then the fourth thing is, what capabilities will they gain, or what options or opportunities will be opened up to them? For instance, if you have a course that's about landing your dream job, and you're going to help them to prepare their resume and prepare to find the right positions and be able to interview well for them, well, you're opening up the capabilities or the opportunities to get a new job that's going to pay them better and be more fulfilling for them. And then the fifth one is just fundamental human needs that we all share. And ultimately, our behaviors, our decisions that we make are influenced by some combination of these needs at any given moment. And these are things like freedom or safety or creativity or belonging. So, as a business coach, I often am helping people have increased freedom with their time. I help them launch online courses so that they have a more stable income stream and don't have to spend as much one-on-one time consulting and coaching. So that gives them more freedom and latitude in how they want to operate within their business, for instance. So results, transformation, relief, capabilities, and needs, you can kind of just think through, well, these 5 areas, what are the outcomes that I'm going to provide, or which of these needs am I going to fulfill with my course? And the way that you can really dive deep on this and get a good idea of what's important for the people you want to serve with your course is to talk to them. Go into your market, find them online wherever they're at, go to your email list, wherever you might be able to get a hold of half a dozen or more of people who fit your intended audience, which we already defined in the previous section, and talk to them about their experiences, talk to them about their goals, their challenges, their questions, the things they're running into. Why are these things important to them? What have they tried already? What are they thinking about trying next? And this will inform you about these 5 different areas and what it is that they are looking for when you dig deep enough. So have those conversations, and that's how you're going to define the outcomes. Now, for your first course, I recommend you keep that outcome very laser focused. go for like a quicker outcome. So something that you can take somebody through a process and they can see those results or that transformation maybe in a matter of a few weeks or a couple of months, something like that. Keep it as a shorter course. Maybe it only has a couple of modules rather than some big flagship course that's got 7 or 8 modules to it. And then, keep it at a lower price point. Keep it simple for yourself. This allows you to get something out there in the marketplace, use this framework, go through that process of creating an online course and keep it simple for you. And then it's also something that people are going to be able to recognize more quickly because you're offering this, recognize that it's for them more quickly because they see it's this laser focused thing that's going to get them to this highly desirable, quicker outcome that you've identified that that they want. And it's something that they can get to those results through, a simple course that you've prepared for them. So I often recommend that people go with something small and highly targeted the first time out of the gate when doing an online course. So to give you just a few examples here, I don't know if we have time to go through all of them, but let's just take the first one here. Let's say you're in the scrapbooking niche and you do your customer discovery interviews, as I call them, what I was talking about there, and you find out that what people want is they want to be able to be more creative and make more interesting pages. They're looking at all these pages on Instagram and Pinterest and going, I want to make more interesting pages like that. And you figure out that one of the things that they really like is seeing people's handwritten fonts, these cool fonts that they do in their scrapbooks and their journals. So you decide, great, I'm going to teach a course that guides people through learning how to do 4 or 5 different handwritten fonts. A very specific, simple course, but something that meets a highly desirable outcome for that niche. With golf, it could be putting techniques, and the result that they're looking for, the outcome is they're going to lower their golf score. Or maybe people who want to play guitar, you find out, well, what they want is a nice little rep. They want somebody who's just learning guitar, and all they really want to do is have a nice repertoire of songs that they can play around the fire for their friends. So you go, great, I'm going to make a course that just teaches these 5 3-chord pop songs that are very popular, maybe like a Beatles song and whatever else, Simon and Garfunkel song, etc. And so these are just kind of examples of some of those very specific courses, and also just give you an idea of the types of outcomes that are great, especially for that first course that you're putting out there in the marketplace. So now that brings us to the part of this process. It brings us to the signature process, which is the third piece of the puzzle here. I call this the online course design canvas because we have these 4 aspects that we're designing. And when you think through these things in advance, it makes it so much simpler to create the course, so much faster. And also it's going to make it so you hit the mark. Nobody wants to release a course that goes out to crickets and nobody buys because they just don't understand or they just don't care about what it is that you've created. So how do we create a signature process to guide people from where they're at now to where they want to go? Well, to map out that signature process, I encourage my clients to break that big outcome down into smaller milestones. And each of those milestones should feel like an outcome, should feel like a part of the journey where like, wow, I've really come somewhere now. I've achieved something. I've had some kind of new insight. I've got myself organized in some meaningful way. I've created a new thing that I can share with the world so that whatever the outcome of that milestone is, it keeps them motivated going from module to module, which is how we organize often online courses is into these modules. So let's give you a quick example here. This is a course with an outcome of being less stressed and having increased well-being. So it's a stress management course. So the modules might be something like, we're going to first teach you how to assess stressors and symptoms. Then we're going to teach you how to practice awareness about your own stress. Then we're going to reduce your stress with, we're going to teach you some resilience skills to reduce that stress. Then we're going to teach you some mindfulness skills to reduce that stress. And then we're going to teach you some cognitive strategies to reduce that stress, all coming to this outcome right here. So that would be the 5 modules of the course. Here's one for budgeting, a budgeting course that it gets you to create and stick to a personal budget. So we set up at the beginning, we set ourselves up for success. Maybe figure out what our bills are, and all that kind of gather all the information. The second module might be create a first draft budget, and then the next module might be okay. Now we're going to get you in how do you start tracking that habit? What are the tools that you use? And then the fourth module we talked about. Here's some of the hurdles you might run into when it comes to sticking to your budget, and we want to help you be able to bypass or overcome those hurdles. And then here's the really simple example. You can have a 2-module course. This is a journal, handwritten font type course example. You learn and practice the 5 fonts, and then in the second module, you create some journal pages with those fonts, right? Really simple. And then the idea is that those modules, and we won't go into this much deeper, there are a lot of criteria we could talk about of what makes for good lessons online and how long should the media be and all those kinds of things. But it's sufficient right here to just realize that each of those modules is broken down into a set of lessons. It might be just a few lessons. It could be 5 to 7 lessons. If it starts getting to 10 or more lessons, you probably need to split it into a couple different modules. And each of these lessons is a video or an audio, or it might be like a PDF worksheet that they go through. So it's one important piece of the puzzle to get to that milestone or that mini outcome as they go through the entire signature process. This brings us to the fourth and last piece, which is designing your experience. So there are 3 parts of an experience when designing an online course, or really any kind of online program. It could be online coaching group, for instance, mastermind, those kinds of things. So first is you need to decide, well, what is the platform? Okay. So what is where are we going to host these materials? How are they going to access the materials? Number 2 is support. Support is how do they get access to you? Do they get one-on-one as direct access to you? Do you, through email? We'll give some examples of that here in a second. And then the third one is community, which is huge when it comes to online courses. Often gets overlooked, but it offers so much value in a way that you don't, just as long as you set it up in the right way, you don't necessarily have to be constantly present to give this additional value with your course when you create a community around it at the same time. So I want to point out here that the experience of your course can fall on a spectrum, anywhere on this spectrum. And at the one end, the experience might be really simple, where it's they buy the course, they get a digital download, they go through it, or they access it through a portal online, they go through it themselves, and that's it. There's not a whole lot of direct support, there's not a whole lot of community, and that's fine. That might be what fits your goals and your business model and be sufficient for what you're doing. On the other end of the spectrum, you would have the more nuanced, bespoke experience where it's one-on-one consulting or coaching, and you would charge a much higher price for that. And then there's everything in between, these hybrid models where they get some other kind of access to you in a more leveraged way for your time and energy. So with platforms, I often get asked, well, Jason, where should I host how do I set up a course online? There are all these different tools out there. Well, the first option, the cheapest, is to just use simple, fast, inexpensive tools and launch a beta, right? I actually don't think that you should go and create a whole lot of videos for a new course and then launch it to find out if people want it or not. I like to sell something before I even create it so that I can know and be motivated by the fact that people have bought it, right? So I've run $3,000 beta programs using nothing but Zoom, Google Drive with a shared folder that I give everybody access to, and Google Docs for the worksheets and the templates and the other tools and things that I give them access to. And that's worked great the first time through that program. It allows me to test it, allows me to get feedback, to refine the process, to find where I might have missed the mark in the messaging and the marketing and the sales, and then be ready for investing more time and money into higher production at that point. So then the next, after you've run a beta, you might even run 2 or 3 betas. So I've done that on occasion. You can move it to a hosted platform. So this is a subscription service that hosts your course for you. It might host the videos for you, the audios for you. They're managing the tech for you. Keep it easy for yourself. You don't need to go and get your own hosting. You don't need to go and get your own video platform. Just go for one of these that get kind of all under one roof, makes it very easy for you to set up your course. A lot of them have these drag and drop or easy to tweak different interfaces to make, and it's easy for your audience to access the course. And 2 examples of that I enjoy are one called Experienceify and one called MemberVault. And then we've got the custom one. And the error that a lot of people make is they go straight to the custom one. They set up the WordPress site and they use the plugin LearnDash, which is my recommendation. If you go that route, eventually they go get a custom theme designed. But if it's a new course, that's just a huge headache, a huge waste of time and resources. You haven't even proven the thing yet. And you'll probably find out that you should have refined if you've built this custom site around thinking this is what the course needs to be, and then you start running it only to find out you got to tweak some things and then maybe redo the site. I mean, that's going to be a lot of wasted resources. So I only recommend going to the custom level once the course is consistently generating profit, and only if it will significantly improve the experience. Maybe you just start deciding, we need such and such feature that our hosted platform over here doesn't provide, so we're going to create now our own custom experience. Support, access to you. What might this look like? Could be live training and Q&A. So they show up to like on Zoom or something like that, and they get to ask you questions. You might provide emails where they can send you questions by email during the duration of the course, or through text or voice message systems and apps. So you've got things like Voxer, for instance. You might offer them the ability to submit stuff for review or feedback, or to send in a worksheet to get your take on what it was that they came up with. Accountability is something that people value quite a bit that you can provide. And then, I put live training and Q&A twice. Well, that is a good one. So it deserves a couple different line items there. And then, of course, there's one-on-one calls that you can offer, but you'd want to price it accordingly, because this is definitely more heavy on your time when you're offering one-on-one calls. And then when it comes to community, a few different things you can do is you could build a mastermind where people, you get them on a call and somebody presents a problem or an issue, and everybody else in the group gives their perspective or their idea, or maybe they've been through something similar and they can recommend a solution or introduce them to somebody. Accountability group. So this is putting the accountability on the participants and getting them matched up with each other to keep each other accountable. You could have a Facebook group, Slack, some platform like that. You could even do in-person events. Maybe there's a retreat at the end of your course where everybody comes together and celebrates their wins and things like that. Or you can also, and this is a new one that I've used that's done really, really well, is co-working sessions. Just basically like, hey, we're going to get on together at the same time for 2 hours on something like Zoom, and we're just going to, we'll each commit to what we're going to get done during those 2 hours, and then we put our, we mute our volume and we go to work, and then we check in with each other at the end. And it can be really effective and motivating for people. And I have a group program that is 6 months long, and one of them ended last spring. And the people, so right now as we're recording this, we're headed into fall, and the people who went through that program that ended last spring are still meeting together months later, and I'm not showing up anymore, but they're still co-working together. They're still holding each other accountable. They're still using the Slack group that I set up. So there's this huge continuation of value without me even having to directly participate once the program is over. So that right there is the quick, I'll go ahead just really fast and put up one more time this 4-piece thing right here, which is what we've gone through today. So define your intended customer, figure out what their specific outcomes are that they want to reach, come up with your own signature process made up of multiple, break it down into milestones that you're going to guide them through, and then decide what is that experience going to look like. How are they going to access the information? Do they get access to support from you? And do they get kind of access to or community, access to each other, community with each other? And when you've thought through these 4 things and really taken the time to be deliberate with it and do your research, and then just beta test it, keep it simple. Right? I've taken an idea for a course, planning this stuff out, and from idea to getting it launched in under a month. Now, that might not be the first time that you do that, but you can get through this pretty quickly, plan it out, and then just say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Here are the outcomes. Here's the price. Put together a quick sales page on Google Docs that people can look through and see if it's for them. Take some money through PayPal, something simple like that. Set it up through Zoom, where there's going to be a sequence of calls weekly, and then you put those recordings of those calls into a Google folder, and maybe you make a handful of tools that go along with the lessons, and you're just doing the training live. I mean, that's a way you sell it first, and then you deliver it as you go, and that's a way you could test a course very, very quickly, and then from there, iterate on it, get feedback, and continue to improve it. So keeping my hope in showing you this is it simplified the process and encouraged you to take that simpler route in getting your first offer to market. So that, Franklin, is my presentation for today.
Wow. That was as succinct and as effective a presentation on creating your first online course as I could have ever hoped for.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That's good feedback.
Really amazing. I have a few questions for you.
Sure. Yeah.
The first one that comes to my mind is very often I think people don't think about the customer and the desired outcome when they're thinking about a course idea. They're thinking about, this is my expertise and I'm just going to put that out there. And I've seen a lot of those fall really flat in terms of their appeal and their success rate. I really appreciate that you made this customer centric and outcome oriented, because I really feel like that's the key to making a profitable course, is to have from the very beginning, the customer's issue, the thing that they want at heart. Can you talk to me a little bit about, like, what are some of the things that I like the list that you put of the different, like, niches, the scrapbooking and the golf and the things like that. But can you talk about, in your own courses that you've made, what are some of the things that that you looked at as kind of a trigger that would say, this is something that I really need to pay attention to? And how did you land on that?
I want to make sure I understand the question. Like, so what do you mean by trigger?
Like, I'm using it in terms of, oh my gosh, there's an idea that I have to do.
Right. Well, sometimes, so you clearly you can see, and this is a lot of this is based on what we call design thinking, right? Which is it's customer centric, it's outcome oriented, it's iterative in getting the product to market, right? And part of that design thinking iterative approach is that you're continually looking for ways to improve based on feedback from the users, right? And so one of the reasons that I love just running a live beta first is that in the moment of teaching, a question will come up or a need will come up, and then I go, oh, okay, well, I could add a video here. I could come up with a clearer example here. Or for instance, that co-working thing came up because people were saying, I just have a hard time during the week making time to sit down and do the stuff that we're learning. And I said, well, I know that for me, it was sometimes when I need to be held accountable, if I even just get on Zoom or whatever with one friend and just work together, it can get me in the pocket and focused, right? So a lot of times those triggers of how to look at your course features, or whether it's the curriculum itself, or everything from the price point or how you market it, is being customer centric and just watching for and listening to that feedback that comes either verbally when people are sharing that with you, or you're soliciting it, or even sometimes they'll say, hey, that was amazing, that thing. You're like, great, I'm going to do that again, right? I'm going to emphasize that even more next time. So or you're watching their behaviors to see, like, okay, well, here's where they're struggling. What can I do to help ameliorate that, to help make it easier for them to move through the process?
Right.
Does that answer the question?
That does answer the question. And one of the things that also comes to my mind is, if somebody doesn't have a lot of teaching experience, is the live beta a good option for them?
Yeah, it's a valid question. So, a beta doesn't have to be live.
Okay.
I also, you can, without doing like highly produced videos, you could, with a pretty simple setup, do you could go with just audio as a beta for one.
Yeah.
That's one thing you could do. You could just make some simple videos with your iPhone. But the point being is, what is the minimum viable product? Don't invest tons of time and money without getting it to market, testing it, trying to sell it, seeing if people respond to it, seeing if it works, and so forth.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I think about that.
So how do you overcome the temptation to overdo?
Yeah, that one's hard for me sometimes. That one's hard for me. Well, one reason I like to sell it before I make it or run it is that puts some parameters on the course is starting next Friday. Like, that's when I said it's starting. And so whatever I can have prepared by then is what they're going to get. So, making those forced deadlines is one great way to do it. I also have people that help keep me in check. Now, that usually requires me at least to have enough awareness when I might be getting down a rabbit hole, or getting perfectionist, or cramming too much information in. And so if that kind of spider tingly sense goes off of, like, maybe you're overdoing it here, Jason, then I know to, like, go check in with one of my trusted colleagues, or friends, or people that I turn to for feedback. It's like, okay, can you check my thinking on this? And they'll probably go like, yeah, that's not going to make any difference to do that this first time. Don't worry about that. And then I also remember that, because it's easy to compensate for our own nervousness, anxiety about the course. Is it going to be any good? Is this something people want? Overcompensate by just cramming value in, which is cramming information in is not actually value. We think we're cramming value in, but really what you're going to end up doing is overwhelming people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people make these courses where they should cut out 30 to 50% of it because it's just not needed. And we could have gone more into depth on that with the specific lessons, but there's some things that I teach my clients and students about keeping that simpler, not only for yourself and your own sanity and resources, but also because it's going to be better for the people that you are creating the course for. So each of those milestones, you're asking yourself, well, what's the minimum they need to know to finish this milestone, this module? Okay, well, they're going to need to learn these two things. They're going to need to put this into action. They're going to make this decision, and and then those are your lessons. And I go back through after I've outlined and go and just kind of ask myself line by line, do they need to know this and again, it's just being outcome oriented. I know what the outcome for the module is, and I'm asking myself, do they really need this to get the outcome of this module? And if the answer is no, then take it out. I remember my first podcasting course I taught, I was going into like sampling rates and how even showing like, the audio wave and how it gets put into bits and all this. They don't need, I could just feel the people's eyes glazing over. So the next time I taught it, I was like, I'm just going to tell them, look, set it to 44 1.k kilohertz, 128 bit, MP3. Just tell them what buttons to press. They don't need to know the theory behind it, right? They just want to record a good podcast. So
use the default on their sound card.
I just remember I don't want to overwhelm people, and that helps rein me in too.
That's good. That's good. I really appreciated the way that you laid out the module and lesson structure and put some emphasis on that it doesn't have to be huge. In fact, it's better that it's not.
Yeah.
Very often with people that I've worked with who are course builders, and we've looked at their course and I've said, you've got more than one course here.
Yeah.
Or you've got a series of courses here. I think that's something a lot of folks may want to consider is, why don't you make your first course something that you could teach in a half an hour or something like that?
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned that Experienceify is one of your favorites, and that's one that I haven't actually had any exposure to. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about why that has taken a top place in your selection?
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm an advisor for them, but there is a good reason why I really recommend them. So one of the dirty secrets of the online course industry is that people don't finish online courses.
Yeah.
Unless you build them such that they're motivated to finish it. Now, that's one reason why a lot of I do have some smaller digital courses, but once people start spending some real money, I'm putting them into groups. I'm getting that community. I'm doing all these things, right? So Experienceify has identified, I can't remember how many it is. It's like 7 or 8 psychological triggers that motivate people forward, right? So it's everything from like little celebrations, and they can track their progress in little celebrations. Like, I don't know if, I use a task manager called Asana, and on my phone sometimes I'll check a task off, and this cute little like unicorn whale thing goes pew, shooting across the screen. And it's a silly thing, but like my girlfriend and I, we joke, it's like, am I going to get a unicorn this time? Click, woo. And right. So it's like little things. It's all the stuff that like social media platforms and apps have figured out to get us addicted to their apps, to playing Candy Crush or whatever it is. Right. But hopefully in this case, you're using it for a more benevolent purpose of, we know you want this outcome. You're only going to get it if you go through the course and do the things. And so Experienceify has asked the question, how do we take it from just a small percentage of people finishing the course to 10 times that many getting through the course, because we've built into the process, the experience, the features that are going to help them do that. So that's why that one is one I'm a fan of.
Tell me about, is gamification a part of the deal?
Yeah, absolutely. Gamification's built into that.
How do you use gamification in your courses?
Yeah, well, so my Experienceify experience is actually a little bit more recent. So I haven't moved some of my courses over there. That's why I also put MemberVault, that I'm also a very big fan of, and they've got some features that Experienceify doesn't have.
Definitely.
And MemberVault also uses gamification. So for instance, one thing I can do in MemberVault is that automatically, as people finish lessons and watch videos, they're earning experience points, is what it's called, XP. is what they do it, and up at the top. And I can set it that once people reach a certain threshold of XP, maybe it opens up this other bonus thing over here, or now they get access to a special tool or call or whatever the case may be. So that's one way, is like building in that their achievements unlock things. I'm a video game player, and I just love, you know, when the video game spells out, it's like, yeah, go do 10 of these things in this specific way, and like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get that. And then when it pops up on my Xbox screen, like achievement unlocked, I'm like, yes, you know, I feel good about myself. So these things work, right? So you build those achievements in, or giving people the opportunity to celebrate their progress. I don't maybe classify that as gamification, but that's, I mean, going back to fundamental human needs, we all have a fundamental human need for recognition. And so that's a way you can build that into your course. You know, people like it when they can show up to one of the calls and I say, well, hey, let's spend 10 minutes. Anybody got a win they want to share? And they hear somebody say, oh my gosh, yeah, somebody reached out to me and asked me if I would do a video for their site, and they're going to pay me for it. And everyone gets all motivated and excited because the person just made their first money off of their new burgeoning business, right? Yeah. And now they're all excited, and that person has some recognition and is more motivated to go forward. So there's a handful of ways that I motivate and gamify the process.
That's awesome. I really appreciate all the insights that you've brought to our show today. Now, the thing that I would also like to ask you about, just one last thing, is that I've participated in a couple of podcast mixers that you've offered for people who hosts and people who want to be guests. Can you tell me a little bit about where that idea came from, how you got started in it? And I've found both experiences to be extraordinarily valuable. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious about that. And I also wonder if you would want to let people know about how they can find out more about those.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So yeah, these networking mixers, and I like to specify, these are not your usual boring networking mixers where you're just like, here's what I do, here's my 30-second pitch, you know, or whatever. That we really structure it to create meaningful connections and help you, find people that's like, yeah, I want to genuinely follow up with that person and see if we can collaborate, or, I can go on their podcast or whatever the case may be. So the origin story of that, I mean, there's a combination of a couple of things. So I co-hosted with a friend of mine, Michael Roderick. And we just, we always like collaborating. So it'd been a while since we'd collaborated on something. So we just had that in the back of our heads. So like, let's find something we could collaborate on, a project. And then at the same time, at the beginning of the year, I had set a goal of, this year I really want to focus even more on expanding my network, deepening relationships with my network, and adding continuous value to my network. Now, in addition, and this is what I call a technique when I do business strategy with my clients. So it's like, hey, here's the goal, and what's the tactics or the things that we're going to reach that goal. I try to find one thing that can further 3 or 4 or 5 goals all at the same time. So. Yeah. Already it was like, I get to work with Michael, which I wanted to do, deepening and expanding my network. Another thing is I've actually gotten leads for my business, because at the end we do these a set of rooms that people can just go on topic and then go to whichever topic room, breakout room they want. Hey, they want to discuss this, okay, over there. And Michael and I each do our own room on our own topic. And just last night there was one you attended, and I did a room about online courses. Yeah. And so people have this moment where they get to get a little coaching from you, and that gives them a feel for. And just last night in that 20-minute session where people came into my room to talk, there was a woman who said, yeah, we need to follow up. I think I might need your help on this, right? So it's a lead generation thing for me as well. Yeah. And then the last thing is, I think it's just a good, kind of on a sub thing of both lead generation as well as deepening and expanding your network, is it's good to have these value adds, these hooks that you can refer to as you're meeting people. So I'm on LinkedIn quite often, and I'll bump into people, or, I do presentations like this, sometimes live, where I meet a bunch of people who've seen me do the presentation, and I want to follow up with those people. And we've all had that experience where you go to a meetup or a mixer or a conference, and like there's these people you generally like, hey, it would be cool to connect with them, but then neither of you do, and you're not sure what the right way to connect, and then it just kind of like nothing happens, and then it just seems weird to reach out to them again. So I love having this thing that I'm doing on a regular basis that offers value, at least to most of the people that I meet in my network. And so if I just did a presentation and there are these 6 people that I connected with over the next week, and I can go, connect with them on, not just send a connection on LinkedIn, but then say, hey, it was great to meet you. By the way, I'm doing this thing next week or next month that you might interest you. Here's the place to register. And then when they show up, they get a lot of value out of attending that. And then the final thing, and this is stacking the ROI even more, is if you are a connector of people, and when people show up to that and see Michael and I with all these people that we've invited that have showed up for it, and they're these quality people who in their own rights have done amazing, interesting things like yourself, then that immediately, just by association, bolsters my own personal brand. It's like, wow, Jason and Michael, they know all of these people. There's a certain credibility and authority that comes with that, right? So it's good for my brand. So that's the origin and the, like 5 or 6 reasons why I enjoy doing that. It's worked pretty well so far. Really enjoy doing them.
The thing that I love about it is looking around the Zoom room, and these are the people that I would like to be friends with. These are the people that I would love to work with. These are the people that I would love to collaborate with. It's like, these are those, the 5 people that you hang around with, right? Right. From Jim Rohn's saying. And I think that the quality of my interactions in those mixers has been just nothing but great.
I'm so happy to hear that.
How do people find out how to register for that?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we sometimes we'll just promote it in a Facebook group or do it by invite only. But I'm happy to if somebody's listening to this and like, hey, I'd like to check one of these out, I'll just say, shoot me an email, jason@jasonvanorden.com, and I'll be happy to hook you up with the registration link for the next one. And then once you've registered for one, we put you on an email list. You're not going to get sent a newsletter or anything like that, but it's just when the next one is coming up, we send out a single email saying, by the way, new one coming up, and then we get a bunch of people. And so we end up getting some regulars coming back as well. So once you've registered once, then you'll just kind of be in the loop as we do more of them as well. So if you don't want to wait for us to bump in somewhere and bump into each other somewhere and me to invite you personally, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm happy to connect you.
Excellent, Jason. I'm a huge fan. The other last thing that I'd like to mention is that you have something to offer to folks that they can download and enjoy and benefit from in their own time. The online course Canvas is the opt-in that you use for your newsletter, right?
Yeah, so when people sign up for my newsletter, they actually get 2 tools I think this group will find interesting. Number one is basically an ebook about the online course Design Canvas that we went over today, but it'll be an easier reference for you to go back through, and I think it gives some more examples and things in there as well. And then there's a second one, which is a messaging framework. And this goes back to that resonance thing, finding your Spotify channel or genre, and knowing like what is it that is uniquely me about what my perspective and what I'm trying to say here with my brand, with my content, with my creations, with my courses certainly. And so this guides you through that, and through a number of questions and exercises at the end, you're going to have a list of like, oh, if these are the things that if I talk about them, I'm going to find that slice of the almost 8 billion people we have in the world who want to learn it from me. And by really leaning into those things in your messaging, it's going to galvanize that following for you. So those 2 tools you get when you sign up for my newsletter at jasonvanorden.com/newsletter.
Easy enough. We'll also make sure that link's in the description and on the screen as well. Jason, one last thing. Who are the people that are ready to work with you?
Yeah, so the people who are ready to work with me are, they're pondering. A lot of times people come to work with me when they're pondering doing an online course, which tends to happen in a couple different instances. One is you've got like your speakers, your coaches, your consultants who have been, do a lot of showing up to speak and one-on-one work, and they feel like they've kind of maxed out on how much time and energy they can do into that. And so it's put a ceiling on their income, right? Or maybe it's made their income a little too wibbly wobbly. So they decide, well, if I have an online course that's scalable, now I have a way to serve more people and increase my income because it's just more leveraged with your time. In the time that I might consult one client, I can actually have 20 people in a group program, and they're all paying me more than I actually would make off of that one client. It's kind of like getting into a ride share. The ride shares, they all have that option where it's like, hey, you could do a carpool and it's going to be cheaper for you, but the driver's making more money because they've got 3 people in their car all paying them at the same time to take them somewhere. So that's one thing, is if somebody hits that ceiling and they want to take their business model, open up new income and things like that. And then the other way, the reason people come to me is they just want to put that process, maybe they've written a book about it or they teach workshops on it, but they want to have not only have they maxed out maybe on their time, but they know not everybody can afford their prices at the one-on-one rate to do their consulting. So they're like, well, I have all these people that show up following me on social media or signing up for my email list, and they can't afford my consulting rates, but I'd still like to help them. And so they have this other offer that they can then give to people, which then expands their impact, and it becomes a new income stream for them as well. So it's usually just wanting to open up new reach and open up new income as well in your business, because you kind of hit that plateau or those constraints that can come along with expert-based, service-based businesses, thought leadership-based businesses.
So to the listeners, anyone, if any of those scenarios is one that you're familiar with, you can find Jason at jasonvanorden.com. I'd also encourage you to find him on LinkedIn. His LinkedIn page is generally filled with value like you've just experienced today. And if you're interested in finding out more about the podcast mixers and other networking events that you host, get in touch with him. He's directly by email. So is it Jason at jasonvanorden.com?
You got it. Yep.
I can't thank you enough. This has been a rich experience for me, and I know it will be for anybody who comes across it in the online world. So thank you so much, Jason, for your time and your knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my pleasure, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come and share this on your show. So thank you.
People who work alone aren't antisocial, at least not most of us. If people think you're weird because you don't want to grow a big company and you'd rather spend most of your time working by yourself, you're just hanging around the wrong people. Your Own Best Company has a Facebook group that you're invited to join right now. We understand the urge to close the door, let your imagination run wild, and stay there until your creative impulse runs its course. We also understand the features and challenges that go along with running a business to support our solo flight lifestyles. Joining the group is free, and it's as easy as clicking the link in the channel description. So go there now and just join the group. Want to hear more where this came from? Subscribe to Your Own Best Company on your favorite podcast app or on the Franklin Taggart Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. To get in touch with Franklin, send an email to yobc@franklintaggart.com. Thanks for listening.